Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth episode of Strategic Business Planning. My name is John Coombs. I'm your host, and we are talking to Ricky Willson today. He's with Willson Brothers Plumbing, and we're talking do's and don'ts of plumbing. In 2000, Ricky began his plumbing career with Alcoa Mechanical Incorporated, initially finding the work challenging. However, he honed his skills and gained experience, and he recognized his aptitude for the trade and envisioned a future in the plumbing industry. By 2019, Ricky earned his plumbing license and secured a significant contract of changing out an apartment complex's copper lines with PEX, marking the inception of Willson Brothers Plumbing. Starting with a very modest setup, a 2003 Ford Ranger, and a small team, Ricky prioritized exceptional customer service, competitive pricing, and superior quality. This commitment to these principles has been instrumental in the company's growth and success. Today, Willson Brothers Plumbing is recognized as a trusted provider in the Maryville and Knoxville area, offering a comprehensive range of services including residential and commercial plumbing, new construction projects, and green plumbing solutions also that promote water conservation and energy efficiency. A point of pride for the company is the investment in the future of the industry. Several young employees are enrolled in the Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, Contractors of America, PHCC, apprenticeship program, demonstrating a dedication to professional development and community contribution. Looking ahead, Ricky's son, who's currently a full-time student at the University of Tennessee at the Haslam School of Business, has joined his team. With his recent inclusion on the Dean's List, he is preparing to lead Willson Brothers Plumbing into the future upon his graduation in 2025. Reflecting on his journey, Ricky is grateful for the opportunities and growth Willson Brothers Plumbing has experienced. The company's commitment to excellence and community remains steadfast as he continues to serve and expand. All right. So that's a long journey, Ricky. 2000 to 2024. So, how did you maintain your drive that whole time? That's 25 years almost.
Well, it's difficult, John. It's when I first started plumbing, I hated it. I'd never worked so hard in my entire life, and I thought to myself, I'm just going to do this for a short period of time until I can find something else.
Okay.
So fast forward 24 years later, I'm still in the industry. Started a business 5 years ago, and maintaining the drive for 24 years like I said, it's not easy. You just get up and go to work every day because that's what's required of you to do.
So there's probably some plumbers or some potential future plumbers out there that might be thinking about getting into plumbing or might be in plumbing now, and they're in their 20s. Let's say they're right out of high school and they don't want to go to college. So if they look 20 years out, that's obviously a big commitment. But what would you say that would motivate them or would give them encouragement to continue the trade? Because 24 years, you've learned a lot. You've probably forgotten more than they've ever learned, right? So what kind of words of encouragement would you give them to continue for that long before they start their business?
Well, I don't think someone has to go 20 years in the trade before they start their business. I would say 7 to 8 years minimum, and then you could look at starting a business from that point.
Okay.
The apprenticeship itself lasts 4 to 5 years.
Did you go through apprenticeship?
I did.
Okay.
Yep.
What was the name of the company, the apprenticeship you went through?
Well, Alcoa Mechanical was the company I worked for.
Okay.
And that was who I did the apprenticeship with.
All right. If someone's interested in doing plumbing, has the apprenticeship from what you went through to what they're going through now? Has it changed?
Totally changed.
Okay. In what ways?
It's more hands-on. It's more lab-oriented. The school we send our younger guys to, our apprentices, Knoxville PHCC
Okay.
apprenticeship program, they actually have a building that is dedicated. It's a hands-on experience. It's I think it's a 3-level platform.
Okay.
Where you've got plumbing. They can practice installs. They can troubleshoot so they can set up different scenarios, and so they can install plumbing and take it out, and then each new class will get to play with the lab.
Right. That's awesome. So when you're going through this process, do you, like, if I wanted to be a plumber today and I went through the apprenticeship program, would I learn something like right off the bat and I would really, get interested in it? Or is it like digging ditches and like being the go-getter, or is it, satisfactory wise? Is it?
I'd say it's a mixture of all of that.
Okay.
Of course, low man on the totem pole, the new one in, they're the first one on the shovel.
Okay.
Usually they're the first one. Hey, go get this out of the truck. For one, you've got to know that they recognize what it is they're working with, and that they know what they're looking for before
Right.
you can just turn them loose with fittings and pipe. Way we do it, and it's not all shovel work. Some days are better than others, but the way we do it is the apprentices, they start out when they're green as helpers, like, cut this pipe this length for me.
Right.
Hand me this, get me this. And we want them watching what the plumbers are doing. And then when that apprentice can recognize what that plumber needs before he asks for it, then they're ready to start. That's when we know
Sure.
that they're ready, that they get it. They see,
Yeah.
they can envision what it is we're trying to accomplish.
Okay.
And that's when we'll assign them, a simple task of install this rough plumbing for a lavatory, or do this plumbing for this bathroom grid.
Sure.
We'll walk them through the process, line them out, and then turn them loose. I'm a firm believer in hands-on experience. I learn more from my mistakes than I do my successes every time.
So in the beginning, there's a lot of people that's going to be watching that's never done a business. So in your beginning, what are some of the mistakes? What are some of the mistakes that you did that you really wish you knew looking back, and whether it cost you a lot of money or a lot of time? What are some of those examples?
That's a great question. Great question. I would say the first thing that comes to my mind was the misconception that I had to beat everyone else's price.
That's good.
Yeah.
I like that.
I felt like in order to get more work, I had to be cheaper than everyone. And that is not true at all.
Yep.
So for a few years, like, I even called some other shops up and was like, hey, what are you guys charging for this? And was trying to see what they were charging so that I could undercut that price. I didn't know.
Yeah, do some recon. That's very smart, but also it's if you don't know what your overhead is, if you don't know what their overhead is primarily, and let's say they're charging $200 an hour and you're a one-man show, well, if you charge $150 an hour, well, you have nothing close to their overhead, so you're going to just win every time. But that can be bad, because does that attract customers that are always looking for a deal? Because that person that said, well, you're cheaper than them, so now I'm going to go to you, do they have friends that refer you? And do you start getting cheaper clients?
That was the trend.
Yeah.
That was the trend. And then when I figured out, that this was a mistake, what I was doing, and then I got into, my overhead, what it cost me per man per hour. And then I went on and was able to figure out how much profit we wanted to add to that number. What percentage were we looking to make?
From the beginning, you had what type of systems? Did you use QuickBooks? Did you use pen and paper? Did you even know what you were tracking? Or was it just like fly by the seat of your pants and shoot from the hip?
I had to grow up quick. I had to grow up quick. At first, it was because I had always done side work, work on the weekends, and that's what actually prompted me to jump out there and start my own business. I realized one day I was making more on a Saturday than I was bringing home all week working for someone else. Yep. And I thought, well, how hard can this be, right?
Right.
Grass is always greener on the other side,
sure.
And so I took that leap of faith, and it's worked out okay, but I didn't know, like, I was always a plumber. The business side, like the business of plumbing is different than plumbing. It's two totally separate things. And just because you're good at plumbing doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be good at the business of
Absolutely.
plumbing.
Kind of like if you're good at making meatloaf doesn't mean you need to open a restaurant.
Yeah.
Right. You got your friends and family that says you're a good cook, or in your case, you've got your friends or family that say, "Hey, you installed a sink, great job. Here's $300," and you're like, "Sweet, I only make $300 in 2-3 days at my job. Now I can make a whole lot." So I know people that's done that. They've taken the leap, but they didn't think at all about the business. And the way you say, you did it. I know guys that are in their 20s that do it the opposite way, and I know guys that are in their 40s that do it exactly like you said. They've never ran a business. They've always worked for someone, and they take the leap and they don't do that. So knowing what you know now, 5 years in business, what are some of the things that someone that's watching today that might want to start some type of trade business, not just plumbing, but if they're wanting to be some kind of carpenter, if they can do trim, or they want to be do siding and gutters or whatever, what kind of advice would you give them to do right off the bat?
Understand your numbers from the inception.
Okay.
Understand what your cost is, and track that cost, because you can't really know if you're making money if you don't know how much you're making.
All right. So give us some examples of those costs. Like what your day-to-day costs, what are those?
Well, we have fuel. We have 7 vehicles on the road now.
Okay.
So there's a fuel cost. You've got workers' comp. You've got your liability. You've got all of that. And then having 7 vehicles, we've got 5 vehicle payments that we make.
Wow.
And then outfitting all of those vehicles, all of those service vans has to have shelving, stock items, tools.
Right. Are there any expenses that you didn't think about? Do they hit you? Like
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
had a transmission go out in a van.
Oh, wow.
There's unforeseen things on almost, every job.
Mm-hmm.
Every job that we've been on, there's always something unexpected or unforeseen come up.
Right.
Sometimes that can be an added expense that you didn't account for.
Okay. So those expenses, I've got friends that are general contractors, and they'll say stuff like, "You always have to charge for your time and the extras," right? So you mentioned that you knew what it cost, your labor and all that, but like the extras, let's say the customer wants you to do a certain thing, and then you get there and they change their mind. New in business, my friends, they say stuff like, "Well, I just did it because I just wanted them to like me," and you don't charge for that extra stuff. How do you break past that where you're like, "I really need this money, I really need this job because this is the only customer I have this week"? How do you charge that customer? How do you get past that hurdle?
There's a great quote by Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain.
Okay.
And he says, "I've had a lot of worries in my life, most of which have never happened."
Wow.
So to me, I always worried about what that customer's thinking, but the reality is the customer's probably not even thinking the way my mind is thinking.
Right.
Right. So I've done the same thing where I wouldn't go up and be like, "You know what, I'll just eat it. It's not much." But when you eat a whole bunch of those not much items over the course of a year, that adds up. So I've done the same thing where I would just eat it. And today, like, I've learned, because that I see the bottom line, that adds up. So today, we just go to them and say, "Hey, I mean, you have to. You have to." if you want to stay in business for long.
Right.
You've got to just go to them as professional as possible and say, you know, this is something we didn't account for. It's in addition to what we expected and what we estimated. And most customers are in my experience, most customers don't have an issue paying for something extra.
Right. So you've got 7 vehicles. So does that mean you've got 10 employees, 14 employees? Or
12.
12. Okay, you got 12 employees. So there's people watching that don't have 12 employees. But they want to get to where you are. And I've always heard that you can't exactly charge where you want to be, but you got to charge enough to get to that point. How do you adjust pricing? And over time, I'm sure you've charged more and upped your price, you know, each time. When you go through all that training, 4 years, 5 years of apprenticeship, now you have the skill set to do it. How do you base your pricing so that someone's watching that maybe they don't want to be a plumber, they just want to know your business? How does that work? How does pricing work?
We shoot for a 30% profit.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
Well, we shoot for 30%, John. That doesn't mean we hit 30%.
Okay.
So far over the course of this year, we're averaging 18.
Okay.
But we're aiming for 30. So we're not hitting the mark we're shooting for.
Sure.
But I'm okay making 18% profit.
I think you've told me before that you have subscription services. Are the difference in that 30% and 18%? Is it discounts that you're giving away because of it, or is there things that you're just letting slip on purpose, or maybe not even catching?
With our memberships that we offer, all of our members receive 10% off, so that would automatically cut our profit margin from 30 to 20.
Right.
And then some things that added material we didn't account for or charge for, added fuel trips or extra labor on jobs.
Okay.
So we've really gotten to the point now where we're job costing each project, and we're trying to hone in on exactly where is that missing 2%. You got to figure out where your money's going, what you're spending it on, and how you're losing, where you're not making money.
Okay. So if you're in the service industry and you're watching and you want to start a subscription service, Ricky, how would they do that? Like what does a subscription service look like?
For us, it's a $99 annual fee, and we offer, because if someone's going to pay for something, they want to see a value in what they're buying, right? So we offer them 10% off all services. We don't charge a trip fee ever. If there ever is an emergency or something that, like our members, we will go out. We don't offer emergency services, but they can always call, and for our members, we're not going to leave you with no water or no toilet all weekend, right? We will get out there and get you taken care of. So there's no overtime, no after hours fee for them, no trip fee, and they save 10% on everything.
That's good value.
That is a good value. And for us, as the business owner or a business, it creates customer retention.
Sure. Having
that membership, because they know they're going to call us, they're going to save the 10%, and we're the first plumber they call.
Okay. So trip fee. I know people that are electricians and other plumbers that are friends of mine that charge a trip fee. If someone's new in business, a lot of times these guys have a hard time charging a trip fee. Ricky, if somebody is new in business and they're like, I want to do it for free, I want to go out there, I don't want to charge a trip fee, how do you get to the point to where you charge it? Like what do you say to the customers, and when you tell them the reason, do they push back or do they understand?
Well, this is a great subject. We have someone that if someone calls us, we have someone answer our phone to book our calls, right?
Okay.
And we actually, of course, we charge a trip fee to help cover the cost of fuel and the technician's time that we pay for them to go out to provide the estimate, because it's not free for us to give an estimate. Someone is putting in time, and there's a cost associated with providing that estimate.
Right.
So the $79 trip fee we charge, it's not because we need the $79, but it's actually, we use it as a tool to qualify that customer.
Okay.
So if they give us any blowback or a hard time about having to pay $79, I feel like that lets us know immediately that, one, they don't value our time,
Right.
and two, if they're fussing about $79, they're probably not going to like my estimate anyway.
Sure.
So it's a way just to kind of weed out the problem customers that we really don't want as our customer anyway.
Got it. Okay, let's back up a little bit with the people that are listening that don't. If somebody wants to become a plumber, where do they start?
Most every company across America is hiring plumbers.
Okay.
It's a dying trade. There's not many younger people getting into it. Everybody wants to sit behind a computer or be a engineer.
Right.
So there's not a lot of people getting into this trade. So most companies all across America recognize this, that there is going to be a substantial need for plumbers in the near future. They're all investing in the future. All of your reputable companies, they are investing in the future of the trade by hiring in a lot of apprentices with little to no experience.
Right.
We prefer getting someone with no experience, never worked as a plumber before, than someone that's got, like, say, a year.
Okay.
And the reason being is that person with a year has been with another company. They may have some bad habits.
Right. Probably
And
better.
sometimes it's hard to
Yeah.
break those bad habits.
Oh, yeah.
So when you get someone with no experience, there's no bad habits you got to break. But most every companies, all companies are hiring plumbers with no experience right now,
Okay.
just because there's that big of a need.
So in your bio, we talked about your son. Do you have any more family members that's involved in the business?
I do.
Okay.
I do. My wife works for us. She works part-time. She's got her own career, and
Part-time boss.
part-time boss. Full-time boss. We'll say full-time
Full-time
boss.
boss.
Yeah, full-time boss. Then I have a cousin.
Okay.
Actually, I have two cousins and my daughter. So,
Awesome. Your
Yeah.
daughter.
yeah.
Wow.
She works in the field she's a first-year apprentice. She went to the apprenticeship school.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to have their family involved in their business, what would you say? What kind of advice would you give them? Because I know you got to be patient with your family being involved in it. And me personally, I want to have my family involved in my business. How do you do it? What's some advice you have for those people that are wanting
It's
to?
difficult. It can be so challenging because for me, I made a decision early on that, at 5 o'clock when I come in that door, if my wife didn't do something that she was supposed to do, like if she had a networking meeting she was supposed to attend and she forgets it's Thursday,
Right.
I let all of that go when I walk through the door.
Sure.
Even with the kids, I try not to, on our off times, make our relationship about the business.
Yeah.
I try to keep everything separate. And sometimes that's hard, but that's something I really try hard to do.
Would you suggest if somebody had enough employees to not have their family involved in the business in any way? Is there pros to that side?
Yeah. I think there's pros and cons to both sides.
Okay.
It is not, because you can hold people that aren't family members a little bit more accountable.
Right. You give more lenience to your family members,
Yeah.
unconsciously.
You pick and choose your
probably.
battles
Absolutely.
a little more carefully.
Especially if you live with them or you're married to them, right?
Exactly.
So let's talk about business in general, not plumbing. In business, what's something that people don't realize that it takes, whether it's grit, whether it's knowledge that you didn't know about, quote, business before? You mentioned it earlier. You had the plumbing skills, but you didn't have the knowledge of business.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that people can do in any business that's linked to whatever profession they have that you would give advice for?
I would say, number one, it's so important to know your numbers.
Yeah.
It's so important to know the health of your business by what your numbers and that data reveals to you.
So how do you do that? Like in business, let's take plumbing out of the picture.
Okay.
Do you use spreadsheets? Do you use QuickBooks? Do you have bookkeepers?
The bookkeeper was the first task that I went and paid someone to do for me,
Okay.
other than hiring a helper.
Sure.
Right. So having a bookkeeper, that was the first hat. Because you know, John, in business, when you start a business, you wear so many hats as the owner.
100%.
So the first hat I was able to remove off of my head was a bookkeeper.
Right.
Then payroll. So I got rid of those things.
Yeah.
Gave them to someone else.
Do you do your own taxes?
I do not.
Okay. And that's something else you pass on, right?
I have a CPA
Okay.
now that does our taxes for us.
Marketing and sales?
At first, I was doing all the marketing, Facebook ads, little things like that. But now we have a marketing firm,
Wow.
Visual Voice, here in Maryville.
Okay.
They handle all of our socials,
Right.
Google, all of that stuff.
Right. Do you spend a lot on advertising?
Spend a lot.
Okay. Like Google
Spend a
advertising?
lot of money on marketing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's good. So-
Someone told me when I first got into business that you need to spend 10% of your gross, right,
Wow.
on marketing.
Okay.
And so at least 10% is what I heard.
That's solid. Is there anything else that that you would like to share with the viewers that maybe we didn't cover that you wanted to?
I would just say, man, if the viewers out there, like, if you have a dream, man, that dream is still alive. Like, I started plumbing, and within 2 years, I knew I wanted to have my own business. Now, it took me 20 years, almost 20 years, to start that business.
Right.
But, that dream, even, it was still there. And then once I just made the decision, like when I started focusing on more of making this a reality than focusing on the fear of what it looked like to step out,
Right.
I was able to see the vision.
Wow. That's solid.
Yeah.
That's solid advice. So there's people out there that are watching that really understands that, because the vision comes first, and then you gotta complete the business. Well, Ricky, we really appreciate you coming out today, and I wish you much success in the future. Appreciate you, man.
John, thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate
Absolutely.
you.